Welcome back to the Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive. Today we are diving into a day that's already making history. Donald Trump's return to the presidency and the wave of executive orders he's unleashed. You've probably seen the headlines, but we're going beyond the surface to understand what these changes really mean.
What's really striking is not just the number of executive orders, but the speed at which they were signed.
Right.
It signals a clear intention to set a new course right from the start.
It's like he hit the ground running, signing over 200 executive orders on day one. A new record. They cover a huge range of issues: immigration, energy, social policy, even symbolic changes. There's a lot to unpack here.
It's almost like a blueprint for his vision of America.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a sharp turn away from the policies of the Biden administration.
Okay, let's start with immigration, which seems to be a top priority. What did these executive orders actually change?
Well, with immigration, Trump declared a national emergency at the border, which allows him to allocate more resources and potentially deploy the military. He also wants to end catch-and-release policies, which means detaining asylum seekers instead of releasing them into the country while they await their hearings.
That's a significant shift.
Right.
Wasn't catch-and-release already largely replaced by the Remain in Mexico policy during his previous term?
The Remain in Mexico policy faced legal challenges and was ultimately suspended. These new executive orders seem designed to address those legal hurdles and create a more robust system for detaining asylum seekers.
He's also targeting birthright citizenship.
The 14th Amendment guarantees citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil. Trump's executive order can't actually change the Constitution, but it directs agencies to interpret birthright citizenship more narrowly, potentially excluding children of undocumented immigrants or those born in the U.S. while their parents are on temporary visas.
That's bound to be incredibly controversial and spark legal challenges. It seems like he's setting the stage for a major legal battle over this issue.
It raises important questions about the power of the executive branch and the limitations of executive orders. Can a president effectively reinterpret the Constitution through executive action? That's something the courts will likely have to decide.
And let's not forget the symbolic changes he's making, like renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. While some might dismiss it as a trivial matter, I think it speaks volumes about his vision for the country.
It's definitely a way of asserting American dominance and control, even over geographical features. It taps into a sense of national pride and perhaps a desire to reassert American influence on the world stage.
It's a fascinating insight into his worldview. And speaking of interesting, what about the changes to energy and environmental policy? Those seem like a major part of his agenda as well.
He's rolled back a number of environmental regulations, particularly those related to oil and gas production. He's also announced plans to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement once again.
That was one of the first things he did in his first term, wasn't it? It seems like he's doubling down on his commitment to energy independence, even if it means going against the global consensus on climate change.
It's a move that's likely to be praised by those who prioritize economic growth and energy security, but it's also sure to face criticism from environmentalists.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and it's one that's likely to have significant implications for the future of the planet.
Now, getting back to Trump's executive orders, another area he's focused on is social and cultural policy. One of the most controversial moves is his reinstatement of the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military.
That was a policy he implemented during his first term, which was later reversed by the Biden administration. Now it seems like we're back to square one on this issue.
It's a decision that's likely to face legal challenges and spark protests from LGBTQ+ advocacy groups.
What are the arguments for and against this ban?
Well, supporters of the ban argue that transgender individuals serving in the military could disrupt unit cohesion and morale. They also raise concerns about the costs associated with gender transition-related healthcare.
And what about the arguments against the ban?
Opponents argue that the ban is discriminatory and that it deprives qualified individuals of the opportunity to serve their country. They point out that transgender individuals have been serving openly in the militaries of many other countries without any significant issues.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the courts and in the public sphere.
It's a reminder that social and cultural issues often become highly politicized, making it difficult to have nuanced and productive conversations about them.
It's crucial to approach these topics with sensitivity and respect for all perspectives. And it's important to remember that behind the headlines are real people whose lives are impacted by these policy decisions.
Let's talk about the impact of these executive orders on the federal workforce. One of the most significant changes is the order requiring federal employees to return to the office full-time. This reverses the remote work policies that many agencies adopted during the pandemic.
This is a major shift They could have implications for productivity, morale, and work-life balance. It's also likely to impact the real estate market in cities with large concentrations of federal employees.
Right. And it raises questions about the future of work in the digital age. Will the traditional office model remain dominant? Or will we see a more hybrid approach that embraces remote work?
It's a conversation that's happening across many industries, and it's one that will likely be shaped by these policy changes.
And it's a conversation we'll continue to explore here on the Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive. Be sure to leave your thoughts and comments below. We love hearing from you.
We're all about fostering a space for open dialogue and thoughtful discussion. And if you're enjoying this deep dive, please consider supporting us on GoFundMe. Every little bit helps us bring you more insightful content.
Do you believe in standing strong for what's right? Do you value faith, freedom, and biblical truth in today's ever-changing world? Then we've got something special for you. Welcome to the Standing in the Gaps merch store, the official store of the Standing in the Gaps podcast, where we explore the social, economic, and political issues of today through a biblical lens. Here's what we've got for you. T-shirts that help you make a bold statement everywhere you go. Whether you're standing up for truth or sparking conversations, our shirts reflect the spirit of standing in the gap. Need fuel for those long, thoughtful mornings or deep dive discussions? We've got premium coffee, roasted to perfection, along with sturdy mugs designed to hold that truth-fueled brew. Want to represent your values wherever life takes you? Grab one of our stylish hats to keep you covered, literally and figuratively. And don't miss our inspirational prints that you can frame and hang up at home or in your office, a daily reminder to stand firm in faith. But that's not all. From accessories to gifts, we've got a variety of items that let you stand out while standing strong for what you believe in. Every purchase supports the mission of Standing in the Gaps, helping us continue bringing you insightful content, meaningful conversations, and the courage to face the tough topics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Standing in the Gaps merch store today. Link is in the description. Grab some gear, enjoy some great coffee, and help us keep bridging the gap in today's world. Together, let's stand for truth. Together, let's stand in the gap.
Let's delve into another aspect of Trump's executive orders. His decision to revoke a significant number of executive orders signed by Biden.
He's effectively undoing a large portion of his predecessor's legacy with the stroke of a pen. This demonstrates his commitment to charting a different course.
But what are the implications of this? Does it create a sense of instability in government policy?
It raises questions about the continuity of government and the potential for policy reversals with each new administration. It highlights the power of the executive branch to shape the direction of the country.
And it underscores the importance of the legislative branch in providing checks and balances on executive power.
The balance of power between the branches of government is a fundamental principle of American democracy, and it's one that's likely to be tested in the years to come.
It's going to be a fascinating period in American politics, and we'll be here every step of the way, providing you with the insights and analysis you need to understand it all.
Remember, we're apolitical here. We're not taking sides, we're just trying to make sense of the facts.
We believe in informed discussion and respectful debate. Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the World Health Organization
Has sparked a lot of debate about global health cooperation and the role of the U.S. in international organizations.
It's not the first time he's done this.
He was critical of the organization's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and accused it of being too influenced by China.
So it seems like he's following through on his previous criticisms and taking a more isolationist approach to global health.
It's a decision that has potential implications for pandemic preparedness, global health initiatives, and U.S. leadership on the world stage.
It'll be interesting to see how this decision is received by the international community and what impact it has on global health efforts.
It's also worth noting that this decision is likely to face opposition from within the U.S., particularly from public health experts and those who see global cooperation as essential to addressing health threats.
It's a complex issue with far-reaching implications, and it's one that we'll continue to monitor and analyze here on the Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive. We encourage you to share your thoughts on this and all the other executive orders in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective.
We value your engagement and appreciate your support.
Now let's take a closer look at some of the more specific policy changes, starting with Trump's decision to delay the federal ban on TikTok.
This is a move that has surprised some, given his previous stance on the social media app. During his first term, he expressed concerns about TikTok's data security and potential ties to the Chinese government.
He even threatened to ban the app altogether unless it was sold to an American company.
However, the ban was ultimately blocked by the courts.
So what's changed now? Why is he delaying the ban?
It's unclear what his exact reasoning is, but it could be that he's giving his administration more time to assess the situation and come up with a new strategy.
It's a situation that is still unfolding, and it's one that we'll continue to follow closely.
It's a reminder that the world of technology and social media is constantly evolving, and government policies are often struggling to keep up.
It's also a reminder of the complex relationship between the U.S. and China, particularly when it comes to technology and data security.
This is an issue that will likely continue to be a source of tension and debate in the years to come.
And speaking of tension and debate,
Yeah.
let's talk about another one of Trump's executive orders that has generated a lot of controversy, his declaration of a national energy emergency.
This declaration is part of his broader agenda to boost domestic energy production and reduce reliance on foreign sources.
It's a move that has been praised by some for promoting energy independence and criticized by others for its potential environmental impact.
It's a classic example of a policy decision with both benefits and drawbacks.
It's important to weigh the potential costs and benefits carefully and consider the long-term implications.
And it's crucial to have a balanced and informed discussion about energy policy, taking into account both economic and environmental factors.
We need to find sustainable solutions that meet our energy needs while protecting our planet.
It's a challenge that requires careful consideration and collaboration.
And speaking of collaboration, we want to thank all of our listeners who have contributed to our GoFundMe campaign. Your support is invaluable.
We're incredibly grateful for your generosity and belief in our mission.
Every donation helps us get closer to our goal of providing high-quality content and reaching a wider audience.
We're committed to delivering insightful and informative deep dives into the news, and your support makes it possible.
Thank you for being a part of the Standing in the Gaps community. We appreciate your engagement and support.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. We're always eager to hear from you.
Now let's continue our exploration of Trump's executive orders, focusing on his decision to reinstate the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military.
This is a highly controversial issue that has been debated for years.
It raises important questions about inclusivity, equality, and the rights of transgender individuals.
The ban was initially implemented during Trump's first term and was later reversed by the Biden administration.
Now Trump has reinstated the ban, signaling a return to his previous stance on this issue.
This move is likely to face legal challenges and strong opposition from LGBTQ+ advocacy groups.
It's a decision that has significant implications for the lives and careers of transgender individuals who wish to serve their country.
It's a reminder that even in a democracy, the rights of minority groups can be vulnerable to political shifts.
It's crucial to remain vigilant and advocate for the rights of all individuals, regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation.
Well said. And remember, we encourage you to share your thoughts on this issue and others in the comments section below. We want to hear from you.
Your perspectives and insights enrich our discussions and help us better understand the complexities of these issues. Speaking of complexities, let's delve into another significant policy shift: Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement.
This move has been widely condemned by environmental groups and world leaders.
They argue that it undermines global efforts to combat climate change.
The Paris Agreement is a landmark international accord aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and limiting global warming.
By withdrawing from the agreement, the U.S. is signaling a retreat from its commitment to addressing this critical issue.
It's a decision that has far-reaching implications for the environment and for future generations. We need to take climate change seriously and work together to find solutions.
It's a global challenge that requires global cooperation.
And it's an issue that should transcend political divides.
We all have a stake in protecting our planet.
And we all have a responsibility to act. It's interesting to note that even seemingly small changes, like renaming geographical features, can carry a lot of symbolic weight.
It's all about optics, isn't it? These symbolic gestures, alongside the more concrete policy changes, paint a clear picture of the direction Trump wants to take the country in.
Let's not forget the impact on the federal workforce.
Right.
Trump has ordered federal employees back to the office full-time and implemented a hiring freeze, particularly targeting the IRS.
That's a big shift from the remote work policies many federal agencies adopted during the pandemic. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts productivity and morale.
Proponents of the return to office order argue that it fosters better collaboration and communication among employees. They also suggest it could help revitalize downtown areas that suffered economically during the pandemic.
But what about the downsides?
Critics argue that forcing employees back to the office could be disruptive to those who have adapted to remote work and may have childcare or other responsibilities that make commuting difficult. They point to studies that suggest remote work can actually increase productivity in some cases.
It's a complex issue with valid points on both sides. It seems like we're in a period of transition when it comes to work culture, and these policy changes are likely to shape the future of the workplace for years to come.
Absolutely. It's something we'll continue to watch closely. Now, shifting gears a bit, it's also worth noting that Trump has revoked a significant number of executive orders signed by Biden, effectively erasing much of his predecessor's policy agenda.
Reversing 78 of Biden's executive orders is a bold statement. What message do you think he's trying to send with this action?
It's a clear signal that he intends to dismantle the previous administration's legacy and implement a drastically different vision. It's also a way of asserting his authority and demonstrating his commitment to fulfilling his campaign promises.
It's a dramatic move that highlights the stark ideological differences between the two administrations. Do you think we're likely to see legal challenges or pushback from Congress in response to these reversals?
Oh, we're almost certainly going to see both. The balance of power between the executive and legislative branches is sure to be tested as these policy changes are implemented.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out in the courts and in the political arena. If you're finding this deep dive insightful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more.
And if you're enjoying the show and want to support our mission of providing in-depth analysis, please consider checking out our GoFundMe campaign.
Right.
Your contributions help us improve our production quality and reach a wider audience. We're incredibly grateful for any support you can provide.
We are a small team with big ambitions, and every little bit helps.
We're passionate about delivering high-quality content, and your support allows us to invest in the tools and resources we need to achieve that.
So head over to our GoFundMe page and consider making a donation. We appreciate every contribution, big or small. Now let's turn our attention to another major policy change, Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the World Health Organization.
This is a decision that has sparked a lot of debate, both domestically and internationally. What are the key arguments for and against this move?
Supporters of the withdrawal argue that the WHO is ineffective and too influenced by China. They believe that the U.S. can better address global health challenges through bilateral agreements and partnerships with other countries.
That's a perspective we've heard from some conservative circles.
Critics of the withdrawal argue that it undermines global health cooperation and weakens the U.S.'s ability to respond to pandemics and other health threats. They point out that the WHO plays a vital role in coordinating international health efforts, providing technical assistance to developing countries, and setting global health standards. It seems like a classic example of America first versus global cooperation.
It definitely raises questions about the U.S.'s role in the world and its commitment to multilateralism. It also highlights the tensions between national sovereignty and the need for international cooperation on issues that transcend borders.
It's a reminder that health is a global issue. Diseases don't respect national boundaries.
What happens in one part of the world can quickly affect other parts of the world.
It's a complex issue with far-reaching implications, and it's one that we'll continue to explore in future deep dives. Speaking of future deep dives, let us know in the comments what topics you'd like us to cover.
We're always looking for new ideas, and we value your input.
Now let's lighten things up a bit and talk about Trump's plans to rename the Gulf of America.
While this might seem like a trivial matter, it's another example of Trump's use of symbolism to promote a certain vision of America.
It's a way of asserting American dominance and influence, even over geographical features. But do you think it's likely to stick? Will people actually start calling it the Gulf of America?
It's unclear if this name change will gain widespread acceptance. It hasn't been officially adopted by any mapping organizations or government agencies.
It's more of a symbolic gesture than a practical change. But it's certainly generated a lot of buzz and discussion, hasn't it?
It's a good example of how even seemingly minor policy changes can spark conversations about national identity, history, and culture.
It's also a reminder of the power of language and symbols in shaping our perceptions of the world.
Absolutely. And speaking of shaping perceptions, let's shift our focus back to one of the more consequential policy changes, Trump's reinstatement of the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military.
This is a decision that has reignited a debate about inclusivity, equality, and the role of the military in a diverse society. What are the arguments for and against this ban?
Supporters of the ban argue that it maintains unit cohesion, military readiness, and avoids unnecessary medical costs.
And what about those who oppose the ban?
Opponents argue that the ban is discriminatory, undermines military morale, and deprives the country of talented individuals who are willing to serve. They point to the fact that many other countries allow transgender individuals to serve openly in their militaries without any significant issues.
It's a complex issue with strong arguments on both sides. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the courts and in the public sphere.
It's also a reminder that social and cultural issues often become highly politicized, making it difficult to have nuanced and productive conversations about them.
It's important to approach these topics with empathy and understanding, recognizing that there are real people whose lives are affected by these policy decisions.
And speaking of real people, let's talk about the potential consequences of Trump's decision to declare a national energy emergency.
This declaration is part of his broader agenda to boost domestic energy production and reduce reliance on foreign sources. But what are the potential costs and benefits of this approach?
Proponents of this policy argue that it will create jobs, stimulate economic growth, and enhance national security by reducing dependence on foreign oil.
And what about the potential downsides?
Critics argue that it could lead to increased environmental damage, exacerbate climate change, and undermine efforts to transition to cleaner sources of energy.
It seems like a classic trade-off between economic growth and environmental protection.
It is. And it's a debate that's likely to continue as the U.S. grapples with the challenges of meeting its energy needs while addressing climate change.
It's a reminder that there are often complex trade-offs involved in policy decisions, and there's no easy answer that will satisfy everyone.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from immigration and energy to social policy and symbolic changes. What stands out to you as the most significant takeaway from these Day One executive orders?
I think for me, it's the sheer scope and ambition of these actions. It's like a roadmap for a completely different direction for the country, and it's all happening very quickly, which adds to the sense of dramatic change.
It's like he's trying to make up for lost time, pushing through his agenda at lightning speed. But the big question is, will it stick? We're already seeing legal challenges to some of these orders, and Congress won't just sit back and watch.
This is just the beginning of what's likely to be a very turbulent 4 years. The balance of power, the role of the court's public opinion, all of these factors will come to play as these policies are implemented and challenged. And don't forget the international implications. Withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, for example, sends a strong message to the rest of the world about America's priorities and its commitment to global cooperation.
Right. It's a sign that the U.S. is taking a more unilateral approach, prioritizing its own interests above global agreements. And that could have ripple effects across a range of issues, from trade to security.
So what does this all mean for you, our listeners? Well, one thing's for sure, we're in for a wild ride. And we'll be here at Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive, breaking it all down for you, helping you understand the complexities and potential consequences of these policy shifts.
And remember, we're apolitical here, not left, not right. Just focused on understanding the facts.
Exactly.
Let us know what you think of all this. We're all in this together, trying to make sense of these historic times.
And don't forget, if you value the kind of in-depth analysis we provide here, please consider supporting our GoFundMe campaign. We're a small team with big ambitions, and every little bit helps us reach more people and improve our production quality with things like better webcams, studio microphones, and editing software.
We're passionate about bringing you the news without the noise, the facts without the spin. And with your help, we can keep doing just that.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.